Ever notice how the worst thing someone said about you quietly became your entire personality? You're too sensitive. You're not leadership material. You're kind of weird. You didn't overcome them, you became them. So let's say someone once told you you're too emotional, and you laughed it off, or pretended to. But weeks, maybe years later, you catch yourself doing weird mental acrobatics, holding back reactions and editing text messages like they're PR statements. You never consciously agreed to it, but part of you started treating that insult like a diagnosis. Why? Because your brain doesn't treat criticism like a Google review. It treats it like a meteor impact. One that leaves a crater right in your self-concept. There's a name for this: identity fusion. It's when emotionally charged criticism doesn't just hurt, it merges with how you see yourself. You're too loud becomes, I should be quieter. You're not leadership material becomes, I'll just stay in the background. You're weird becomes better camouflage. And your brain? Oh, it's freakishly good at this. Especially when the comment comes from someone you admired, or hit during a socially tender time, like childhood, or, middle school, aka that gladiator pit where personalities go to die. Here's the twist. The part of your brain doing all this thinks it's helping, because under the hood of your adult-ish personality is an ancient operating system, one that evolved not for happiness, but for survival. Criticism to that system isn't information, it's a threat. Specifically, a threat to belonging. And to your lizard brain, losing social belonging equals death. Cold, lonely, bear-adjacent death. So what does it do? It logs that shameful moment like a security breach, then installs a permanent do not repeat update, except it doesn't delete the behavior. It deletes your permission to be that way. Enter the negativity bias, your brain's preference for bad news over good, because bad news keeps you alive longer. So that one insult, it doesn't just echo, it etches into how you act, how you present, what parts of you get airtime. And here's the kicker. What if the most persistent parts of your personality are just long-term PR damage control? What if the traits you think are just who I am are actually who you became to avoid being hurt again? Let's look at what's actually happening inside your brain when someone criticizes you. First up, social pain overlap theory. When you hear something like you're not good enough, your brain doesn't process it as a helpful suggestion. It reacts as if you've been physically hurt. The same neural circuits that respond to physical pain, burns, cuts, broken bones, light up when you feel socially rejected. That's why an offhand insult can ache long after you've forgotten who said it. It's not drama, it's wiring. Then comes self-referential encoding. This is your brain's special filing system for anything that feels personal. If something seems like it's about you, especially when it carries emotional weight, it doesn't just get noticed, it gets prioritized. Your brain tags it as important, stores it deeply, and over time starts treating it like identity. Not someone once said I'm difficult, but I am difficult. Not they thought I was annoying, but that's just how I am. And the more intense the shame, the faster it fuses. Which brings us to the negativity effect. Your brain doesn't weigh positive and negative input equally. Bad news gets more attention, more emotional charge, and a longer shelf life. You forget compliments by lunchtime. But one piece of negative feedback, you'll still be thinking about it while brushing your teeth 6 years later. This isn't because you're broken, it's because your brain is biased toward threat detection. Negative experiences stick because they've been evolutionarily useful. But here's where things go from sticky to cemented. Mindset theory tells us that when you believe a trait is fixed, unchangeable, you stop trying to evolve it. If you think you're just not leadership material, you don't challenge that, you just avoid leading. If you think being too much is who you are, you learn to be less. Not because it's true, but because it feels safer. So instead of examining the criticism, you internalize it. And instead of questioning the belief, you build a personality that won't trigger it again. You don't just protect yourself from rejection, you start disappearing parts of yourself entirely. And eventually, that doesn't feel like defense anymore, it just feels like who you are. Let's be honest. You didn't wake up one day and decide, yup, I'll dim my personality forever, but somehow it happened. Your brain didn't mean to betray you, it meant to protect you. By rewriting your personality to avoid anything that once felt like danger. And that danger? It was usually just someone else's opinion, delivered at the wrong moment and soaked in shame. Your brain took that pain and went full interior designer, rearranging your traits, removing the bold colors, feng shuiing the soul, not to help you grow, but to help you disappear in all the right places. So the question isn't, why am I like this? The question is, who was I trying to make comfortable? Because so many of the traits you think are just me aren't you at all. They're responses, adaptations, a kind of emotional camouflage built to avoid repeating a moment that hurt. But if that identity was built to survive pain, it might not be built for joy, or love, or visibility, or freedom. And that means you have a choice. You don't have to keep living by a manual written during your most insecure moment. You can ask, loudly this time, is this trait actually me, or just the version of me that kept me safe? And maybe, just maybe, it's time to retire the safety script. Because the rejection already happened, the pain already came. You don't need to keep rehearsing it forever. But now, you get to rebuild. Subscribe, Brain said so.